Rain poured from the green skies of Cyrillus as flames rose from the capital spires. The Zoran people, soft-skinned, six-limbed, and peaceful, ran through the city in silence, holding their wounded, hiding their young, praying to stars that had long stopped answering. Their world, once covered in music and light, had become a graveyard of smoke. No weapons, no soldiers, no hope. The enemy wasn't there for resources. It was there to erase them. Black ships had arrived 3 weeks ago, descending like shadows. With no flags, no demands, only death. Machines wrapped in silver plating and shaped like nightmares poured from the sky and began burning everything that made Cyrillus beautiful. They didn't speak, they didn't negotiate, they hunted. The Zoran were artists, healers, dreamers, but not warriors. Their songs were no match for steel. So in their final desperation, the elders returned to a forbidden tower at the edge of the old world, a ruin from the time before records. There they found the ancient machine known only as the signal spine. It hadn't been activated in 1,000 years. It was designed for one thing: to send a distress call into deep space. Not targeted, not guided. It's just a wide, desperate cry for help, an interstellar scream from a dying people. As the elders linked their minds to the ancient device, they didn't know who might hear. They only prayed it wouldn't be more monsters far away, light years from Cyrillus on the edge of human space. The signal reached Earth's outer recon net, was caught by an old military AI that was still scanning for life after the collapse of Sector 9. The message was raw and full of emotion. It didn't ask for war. It asked for kindness. It begged for help. The AI flagged the file under the First Contact Directive, Priority 1, then routed it to Earth's Deep Command archive. That's when things changed, because Earth was no longer the world the galaxy once remembered. It had become a different place. After surviving its own wars, after being left alone by the Galactic Council, Earth had built its own way forward. It had learned how to thrive without help, and how to fight without mercy. The people Earth sent to answer distress calls weren't diplomats or doctors. They were called the Black Reach, an elite unit born from Deathworlders humans, evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. And when they heard the Zoran's message, they didn't send comfort. They packed guns, wore suits, and neural armor. Their mission was simple: arrive, analyze, eliminate the threat. The Zoran saw the ships first, coming through the clouds like burning stars, sleek black holes with glowing red engines, moving in perfect silence. They thought, for a moment, that these were more enemies. The elders ran to the old tower again, trying to shut down the signal, but it was too late. The humans had arrived. The first to land was a single dropship, armored like a fortress and steaming from atmosphere burn. It didn't open right away. It just sat there, humming with quiet power. The Zoran gathered at a distance, unsure whether to flee or bow. Then the door opened. Out stepped 3 humans. The first was tall, with a scar across his face and a rifle on his back that looked heavier than he was. The second wore no helmet, only cybernetic eyes and a dark cloak lined with tech. The third was a woman, smaller, but more dangerous looking than the others. Her armor was black and marked with a symbol the Zoran didn't recognize: a skull with wings. They didn't speak at first. They looked around, and then the woman spoke. Which way to the ones who did this? The Zoran didn't answer. Couldn't. The humans were terrifying, not because they threatened violence, but because they looked like they expected it. The elder named Yahan finally stepped forward, hands trembling. "You came to help?" The scarred human nodded. We heard the scream. Yahan's eyes filled with tears. "We are not warriors. We have no weapons." The woman crouched, looked him in the eyes. "We are." That night, the sky lit with fire. The enemy drones, those silver horrors, returned for their next sweep. But this time, they were met with resistance. Not from Earth. The scarred man, Calcine Reese, moved like death through the trees. His rifle barked once and a drone dropped. The woman, name classified, used only her blades, slicing clean through steel like fabric. The techmancer, Juno, sent virus clouds into the enemy systems, turning their own targeting against them. In 20 minutes, 10 drones fell. In 1 hour, 50. The Zoran watched in silence, hiding behind rocks and ruins, as these new creatures fought not to escape but to hunt. For the first time in weeks, the enemy retreated. The next morning, the humans didn't rest. They built a perimeter. They set traps. They scanned the skies. Out. Reese handed a small cube to Elder Yahan. "This is a come node," he said. "If you're in danger, press the center. We'll come." Yahan didn't understand why this stranger who barely looked at him was now protecting his people like they were his own. He asked, "Why do you help us?" Juno, standing beside a burning wreck of an enemy drone, answered without looking back, "Because when we scream, no one comes. So when others scream, we do." The Zoran didn't know it yet, but they had called not saviors, but survivors, not angels, but Deathworlders. The ones who had come wore no capes, sang no songs. They wore scars, silence, and steel. They would not stop until the fire was answered, and the scream that left Cyrillus in fear would echo back in vengeance. Smoke still rose from the shattered drone wreckage as the sun crawled over the horizon. Cyrillus, once a gentle world of song and air gardens, now looked more like a battlefield, and, for the first time in weeks, the battlefield belonged to the defenders. But it wasn't the Zoran who held the line. It was the humans. Reese stood at the edge of a scorched hill, watching the horizon through his visor. His armor was dented black with ash. His pulse rifle rested across his shoulder. Below him, Zoran villagers moved slowly between rubble piles, trying to clear the remains of homes. Some looked up at him, but quickly looked away, not out of disrespect, out of awe. Juno walked up behind him, a data rod glowing in her hand. "Recon drone picked up a heat trace 20 clicks east," she said. "Could be another swarm staging." Reese nodded. "We move in an hour. Set charges and grid traps." She hesitated. "Zoran are scared of us." "They should be," he replied without emotion. The night before, whispers had already begun among the Zoran. Their elders gathered in the quiet temple ruins, lit only by broken glowstones. "These creatures," said Elder Lemmy, voice shaking, "they do not sleep. They do not rest. They talk to no one. They are dangerous." "They saved us," another elder said. No other species answered. Yahan, the one who had spoken with Reese, shook his head slowly. "Yes, they saved us, but not like saviors, like soldiers. Like they've done this before, too many times." He didn't say it out loud, but the thought had already crossed every mind in the room. Maybe the humans were more terrifying than the invaders. Back at the human forward camp, Lex was planting seismic traps into the hillside, humming quietly too, himself. Sorry, the newest of their squad checked the perimeter sensors while adjusting her neural interface. "Do you think they know what Earth really is?" she asked. Lex grunted. "Nope. Should we tell them?" He looked up and smirked. "Tell them what? That our home tries to kill us every day? That we survived acid rains, tectonic firestorms, 10 wars and 2 extinctions before we even left orbit?" He tapped his chest plate. "They called for help. He came. That's all they need to know." That afternoon, the humans moved toward the eastern ridge. The enemy was there, another wave of the same silver drones. Standing motionless in a circular formation around a strange, pulsing monolith, Juno scanned it. "It's a hive repeater, long-range control signal booster." Reese narrowed his eyes. "So they're not acting alone?" "They never were," she replied. That's when the ambush hit. The sky screamed open, more drones twice. The size, different class fell like meteors. The ground exploded, trees snapped. Lex went down in the first wave, armor torn but alive. Sorry spun mid-air, and fired a plasma burst straight into the closest drone's chest, blowing it apart. Juno dropped into the dirt, sending a virus hack through her forearm uplink. Ugh. 3 drones froze, then turned on each other and exploded. And Reese walked straight into the swarm, rifle glowing red, eyes cold. He didn't shout, didn't blink. He eliminated. The Zoran villagers, watching from a safe ridge, saw the humans move like ghosts, fast, brutal, without hesitation. Drones were cut apart, blasted from the air, ripped open and used as cover. No hesitation. no mercy. And when it was over, the field burned red under the blue sky. The humans stood in the center, breathing heavy, alive, untouched, victorious again later. As they salvaged what was left of the monolith, Juno knelt beside the core node. She tapped into its feed and frowned. "It's not a local AI," she said. "This was receiving commands." "From where?" Sari asked. Juno's voice was flat. "Outside this system, maybe farther." Reese picked up a drone shattered head and stared into the empty socket. "This isn't a random purge. Someone sent these things." Lex leaned on a rock nearby, bleeding from one arm but smiling, and they didn't expect Earth to show up. That night, back in the village, Elder Yahan approached Reese as he cleaned his weapon. "Commander," Yahan said carefully, "your people. You fight like no one we've ever seen. You don't fear the machines. You walk into death like it's normal." Reese didn't look up, because it is. Yahan hesitated. "Don't understand you." Reese finally raised his eyes. "Earth isn't like Cyrillus. It's not soft. It's not safe. It taught us that no one saves you, so we learned to save ourselves. And now, when others scream, we answer." Yahan sat down slowly beside him. "But why come? Why help a species so different?" Reese stared into the fire. "Because if we don't know, one will." Back in orbit, a silent beacon activated above the dark side of Cyrillus. Someone, or something, had seen the humans arrive. The message it sent across the stars was short. Interference detected. Human Deathworlders present. Primary cleanse operation compromised. Phase 2 required. And far away, in the cold black, something began to move. The stars over Cyrillus blinked unnaturally that night, one by one, as if the sky itself were warning them. Reese stood alone on the cliff near the eastern ridge, watching those faint flickers, his helmet off. Scars visible in the cool wind. He didn't need Juno's data feed or Sari scans to know what was happening. He could feel it. This wasn't over, not even close. Below him, the humans had built their camp into a fortified arch. Energy barriers, motion sensors, silent turrets, hidden beneath the rocks. It looked small, but it was stronger than anything the Zoran could imagine. And still, Reese knew it wouldn't be enough for what was coming. Inside the cum tent, Juno stood over a floating screen, watching code ripple down like a waterfall. "Phase 2 is already live," she said. Voice calm but tight, encrypted. "Drone chatter and a spectrum we've never seen. They're pulling something bigger." Sorry, sitting nearby, didn't look up. "How big?" Juno pressed a key. A satellite image expanded. It showed a massive structure, orbital, alive, growing just beyond the dark side of Cyrillus's moon. Tentacles of machinery wrapped around rock and metal like a virus taking root. Lex walked in, holding a cracked shoulder plate. "I've seen that shape before," he muttered. "It's not a warship, it's a cleanser." Juno nodded. "It doesn't just attack planets, it rewrites them, cleans life down to DNA, turns living worlds into factory shells." Sari stiffened. "Terraforming." Juno's eyes met hers. "No, unforming." By morning, the sky darkened again, this time with purpose. The Zoran villagers rushed for cover as clouds rolled unnaturally fast, carrying no wind, no rain, just silence. Deep above, the cleanser unit finished assembling, its central eye opening like a god's pupil. Thousands of drones swarmed from its underbelly, sleek and black and cold. The second invasion had begun. Reese called the team into the bunker. "Beneath the ridge, this is not a recon war anymore," he said. "They want the planet gone." Lex adjusted his rifle. "So we hit first?" "Not yet," Reese replied. "We're going to do something they never planned for." Sari raised a brow, which is, we get the locals involved. The humans had protected the Zoran, fought for them, bled for them, but they hadn't trained them until now. That morning, the humans stood in the village square and did something no Deathworlder had ever done on Cyrillus. They handed weapons. To the Zoran, Yahan looked at the sleek energy pistol. In his hand, confused, "We don't kill," he said. "You do now," Reese said. or you die. Sari stepped forward. We'll show you how to aim, how to move, how to think like prey that's learned to strike back. Some of the Zoran hesitated, but others stepped forward, quietly, with shaking hands and determined eyes, and the training began that night. As drones began to sweep the far forests again, the humans led the first strike. Not an assault, a disruption. Lex dropped EMP nodes into the valley, cutting drone vision cold. Juno hacked the swarm's uplink, sending them false coordinates. Sari guided a squad of newly trained Zoran through the tunnels beneath the old ruins, and Risi walked into the open, drawing the drone's attention, buying everyone time. He didn't even flinch as the sky lit up with fire. By dawn, the cleanser above Cyrillus shifted. The eye pulsed red, reacting. Something about the planet had changed. The signals were wrong. The resistance was unexpected. The humans weren't just defending, they were teaching others to fight like them. The cleanser AI adjusted its threat index. Priority 1, human units. Threat level. It activated its final phase. Planetary sterilization. A deep pulse echoed across the sky, and from its core, the burner rods began to drop. Inside the forward base, alarmed screamed. Juno shouted across the room. We've got falling rods. Full-scale burn sweep. You're going to light the surface. Lex slammed a console. We can't shoot them all down. Reese didn't blink. We don't have to. He turned to the comms relay. Send the code now. In orbit around a distant gas moon, cloaked and silent, Earth's contingency force sat in darkness, 5 destroyers armed with neutron spires. Built for only one purpose: planetary defense against unknown hostiles. When the code came through, the fleet awoke, and Earth answered. The first human destroyer dropped from cloak and fired. A beam of light pierced the void and cut through one of the burner rods. Mid-dash fall, then another, and another. The cleanser turned in confusion as more ships arrived, quiet, black, unannounced, and the Deathworlders finally went to war. On the ground, Zoran looked up in awe as the skies lit, not with fire, but salvation. Juno smiled. They brought the fleet. Reese watched as the cleanser's outer ring exploded in a silent bloom of flame. They tried phase 2, he said. Lex chuckled. But they forgot who they were dealing with. Sari nodded, eyes on the stars. They thought Earth would send rescuers. She turned. But Earth sent its most dangerous beings instead. The sky was war. Giant beams of plasma streaked through the upper atmosphere as Earth's stealth fleet clashed with the orbital cleanser. Below, Cyrillus shook not from fear this time, but from the sheer force of resistance. The Zoran, once a people of peace, now stood on rooftops and hillsides, watching humans do what no one else had ever done: push back against a force meant to erase entire civilizations. Reese didn't waste time watching the sky. He moved through the forward command station with practiced calm, issuing orders like a man who'd lived through far worse. He had. Earth hadn't raised him soft. Earth raised him harder than extinction. Get the evac tunnels sealed, he said to Sari. If the orbital platform breaches, the shockwave will level the northern valley. Already on it, she replied, her fingers dancing over a holotablet. Rerouting shield grids. Juno's voice came over. Comes next. Enemy AI is adapting again. They've isolated our jamming frequency. Drones are syncing up faster. Looks like they're pulling intelligence from the purifier ship, Lex muttered from beside the supply crate he was using for cover. They're learning too fast. Reese's eyes darkened. Then it's time. He pulled a small black case from his utility belt and placed it on the command table. The Zoran elders who had gathered nearby to assist stepped back as it hissed open. Inside, a red cord cylinder humming low. The hell is that? Lex asked, already grinning. Juno looked up, wide-eyed. You're activating the protocol? Reese nodded. They escalated to planetary burn. That's our green light. Sari stepped away from the console, jaw tight. Are you sure? He looked at her, his voice quiet. I'm always sure. The cylinder was Earth's last resort. Not a Wapena message. The Deathworld protocol. coded broadcast older than the Intergalactic Peace Charter. It was simple. Any species that initiates full planetary cleansing on a civilian world will be marked by Earth's Death World Response Force. Permanently, the message wasn't sent to the enemy. It was sent to everyone else, to every watcher, spy, and satellites still out there, to every neutral race pretending to stay out of it. And within seconds of its release, stars began blinking, ships began shifting, and new enemies began to panic. From the depths of deep space, other factions watched the signal fire into the galaxy and shivered. They knew that code. They remembered what it meant. Centuries ago, Earth had been just another war-scarred world. But when they became spacefaring, they wrote their own laws, not in paper, but in scars and fire. And now one of those laws had just been triggered. The Deathworlders were no longer just reacting. They were hunting. Back on Cyrillus, the Zoran watched from the old temple as Earth's orbital fleet carved chunks from the enemy purifier platform. Flames rippled across its segmented hull, breaking it apart. And then came the part no one expected. Human ships didn't just destroy the enemy, they boarded it in live orbit, like predators leaping into a burning beast's throat. Why? One Zoran child asked Elder Yahan, why would they go inside? Yahan's voice was soft. Because humans never leave the job unfinished. Inside the purifier, the enemy AI fought backlocking corridors, electrifying walls, deploying drones like angry bees. But Earth's soldiers moved like fire. Through a dry forest, Reese led the breach. His boots clanged against steel. His rifle burned white with overcharge. Lex held the flank, dragging a wounded Marine behind him without slowing down. Juno jacked into the ship's nerve core, her face pale as she locked minds with a machine meant to purge whole planets. Can shut it down, she whispered, sweat beading on her forehead. But it's going to try to take me with it. Reese nodded. Then don't give it the chance. Her fingers danced on, and then silence. The red eye at the core of the purifier blinked once, then shut forever. The enemy fleet leaderless, lines scattered. Some tried to flee, some fought to the last. It didn't matter. The humans had already decided no one leaves. Back on the ground, the Zoran wept, not from fear, but from relief. And maybe something else too, respect, or was it terror? They had prayed for rescuers. They got warriors with a code older than mercy. They got Earth when Reese returned to the surface. Armor cracked, eyes cold as ever, he walked into the temple ruins without a word. The Zoran elders bowed low. He raised a hand. Don't worship us, he said. Don't fear us either. Yahan asked softly, then what should we do? Reese looked around the broken world, then out toward the sky where Earth's ships drifted, like shadows. Remember this, he said. You called for help. Came. We burned the enemy to ash. We paid the price. All we ask. He turned back toward them, so that you never let the galaxy forget who did it. Ashes floated across the searless sky like black snow, soft and slow, almost peaceful. But nothing about what had just happened was peaceful. The purifier platform had been torn apart. Its AI silenced. Its fleets reduced to falling wreckage now. Scattered across the mountains and seas. For the Zoran, it felt like a rebirth. But for the humans, it was just another scar. Reese sat on the ridge, helmet beside him, hands scratched, body aching. Across from him, Lex stitched a gash on his arm with a field tool, wincing every time the needle flared. Sari stood beside them, scanning the air with her visor, always watching for more. Juno hadn't come out of her trance yet. She'd poured her mind into the purifier's core to shut it down. The kind of interface that leaves something behind, something that never fully lets go. She's still in there. Sari said quietly, watching Juno breathe in slow, mechanical rhythm. She'll come back, Reese said. Lex muttered. What if she doesn't? Reese didn't answer in the rebuilt Zoran village. The people gathered around the humans' makeshift base not to beg for help, but to understand. They watched as the Deathworlders moved through fire without fear, patched wounds like it was. Routine stared at the stars like they didn't trust them. To the Zoran, these were not just soldiers. They were survivors of something deeper, something older. "We've learned more in 5 days," said Elder Lemmy to Yahan, "than in 5 generations." Yahan nodded, prayed for angels, but maybe what we needed was fire. That night, Juno woke, not with a scream, but with a code word: Eco 7 Tau, execute. Reese was at her side instantly. "Juno?" She blinked, dazed. "I saw it." "Saw what?" "The enemy. It wasn't just a machine. It was a probe, a test piece." Lex froze. "A test for what?" Swallowed. "Something's still out there. Bigger, smarter, watching how we respond." Reese stood, armor humming as he moved. "Then let them watch." Meanwhile, in the dark space beyond the edge of the system, a signal pulsed once more. The enemy hadn't been defeated completely, only delayed. Their message was simple. Deathworlders confirmed. Primary cleanse failed. Updating threat index. Waiting instruction. And far away, in a shadowed place no species had charted, a reply came back. "Observe longer. They burn bright. But all fires fade." So the humans didn't sleep much. After that, they began moving equipment, scanning deep space, preparing the Zoran not just to defend, but to detect, to warn. Because if this world had been targeted, others would be too. Earth didn't send ships without reason. Earth didn't activate Deathworld protocol lightly. But once it did, the war wasn't over. It only just begun. Reese called it the Long Watch. Juno called it Phase 3. Just called it life. That for the first time in Zoran history. A new monument was built high above the capital ruins, shaped from melted drone parts and purifier wreckage. On it, in both Earth Standard and Zoran script, were carved just 6 words. They came, they fought, they endured. At the dedication, Sari stepped forward, her voice calm and sharp like a blade. "You called for help. You hoped for healers. You dreamed of peace." She looked out at the Zoran crowd. "But what you got were humans. And humans are what happens when hope dies and still refuses to stay dead." Above them, Earth's ships didn't leave. They formed a new ring of satellites, listening, watching, guarding. Because if the enemy came again, they wouldn't just meet the ones who fought hardest, they'd meet the ones who burn brightest and never go dark. Space was quiet again, but it wasn't peaceful. The enemy's purifier ship had been destroyed. Earth's Deathworlders had won the battle, and Cyrillus still stood. But Reese knew better. War didn't end with explosions. It ended with silence in what came after. And this silence was watching. He stood inside the underground command hub they'd carved beneath the Zoran capital ruins, staring at a star map that now pulsed red across 5 neighboring systems. Juno's post-purifier scans had confirmed it. The signal from Cyrillus had not been isolated. It had been part of a pattern. 5 other planets. 5 other screams. None of them had been answered. Until now, Lex leaned back in a chair across the room, boots on the table, chewing on protein gum. "This is what they do," he said flatly. "Creep in, test the planet's will to live, then wipe it if it doesn't scream loud enough." Sari added from her station, "Except now." The scream got a reply. Reese didn't look up. "We burned too hot." That kind of fire draws attention. Juno stepped into the room, looking pale but alert. "They're already watching." I cracked. One of the deep archives inside the purifier's brain before it collapsed. "There's a shadow command system out there. Bigger, older. It doesn't just want planets." She looked at the room. "It wants us." That night, a Zoran child crept up to Reese near the outer wall. Her name was Iya. She'd seen her family wiped out in the first wave. She hadn't spoken since. But she stood beside him now, eyes wide. Clutching a small metal shard from one of the destroyed drones, Reese glanced down. "You shouldn't be here." She didn't leave. Instead, she held up the shard and placed it in his gloved hand. He turned it over. It had her family's names, scratched into it, no tears. "Just meaning you're stronger than you look," he said. Finally spoke, voice small. "So are you." Reese stared into the dark horizon, eyes hard, not strong, just stubborn. Deep in orbit, Earth's stealth fleet had completed the satellite ring. Each device served not only as a shield but as a listening ear. Every faint whisper of quantum chatter, every distant warp trace, every coded frequency, logged in from the shadows of a dead nebula. The enemy AI sent one more pulse. Threat escalating, human fire persistent. Project Cauterize begin. Juno picked it up first. New heat bloom, she said, but not from nearby space, from the void beyond mapped stars. Sorry, frowned. What kind of heat, Juno? Didn't answer right away. She magnified the signature, watched the waveform. Then she looked up. A weapon. A big one. Lex cursed softly. They're not sending drones next time. Reese didn't blink. They're sending a star killer. The humans had trained the Zoran to fight, to build shields, to harden their cities. But none of that would matter if the new enemy had planet-cracking firepower, which meant there was only one thing left to do. We leave, Reese said. The room went still. We go to them, he continued. We find this project Cauterize, and we shut it down before it fires. Juno shook her head. That's suicide. No maps, no support. Deep space? Sorry, said, quietly. That's Earth's kind of mission. Reese looked around the room, each face hardened by fire. Exactly. Before they departed, Reese stood before the Zoran in the new council chamber. No ceremony, no speech, just truth. This world screamed, he said, and Earth answered. He looked over the crowd villagers, fighters, children with wide eyes. But more screams are coming. More worlds will burn if we don't stop what's behind this. We're not heroes. We're not gods. We're the last line. He stepped off the platform, and we're going to find whoever lit the match. That night, Earth's fleet turned its ships toward the edge of mapped space. No backup, no waypoints, just a red signal blinking far beyond the edge. Project Cauterize. As the engines ignited and the stars stretched into streaks. Reese stood on the command deck and watched the galaxy blur. Beside him, Juno whispered, "What if this is the fire that consumes us?" Reese answered without hesitation. "Then we burn. Hotter because Deathworlders don't fade. They feed the fire, and the enemy had just made the mistake of giving them fuel." Space wasn't silent anymore, out here as Earth's fleet entered the void beyond known systems. Their sensors buzzed with whispers, dead signals, echoes of long-forgotten transmissions, energy waves moving without origin or pattern. It felt like stepping into the bones of a long-dead galaxy, except something still lived here. Something that moved in the dark and watched from places no star dared to shine. Reese stood on the bridge of the EHS Ashfall, staring into the vast emptiness ahead. No planets, no charts, no allies. Only one thing was clear. The signal Earth had intercepted, the one labeled Project Cauterize, was still pulsing from somewhere deep. Inside this black stretch of space, he turned toward his crew. Juno status? She worked fast, fingers moving across the console, navs running blind, nothing to anchor. We're sailing gravity pockets and star ghosts. Lex looked up from weapon maintenance, grinning. So we're guessing then. Great. Sorry, spoke from the defense station. Not guessing. Hunting. We follow the signal like a blood trail. Reese nodded. Let's move. Days passed, no planets, no sunlight, only debris, massive chunks of hollowed metal. Old colony husks, and deep space wrecks of species, even Earth, had never cataloged. Whatever had lived here had died screaming. One wreck they passed was a ship big enough to hold a moon. Its hull was clawed open from the inside. Juno's scans showed no signs of life, no signs of death either, just emptiness. "I don't like this," she muttered. "It's not abandoned, it's harvested." Then came the voice. Not a real one, no language, no speaker, just a pressure, a presence. Sorry froze mid-motion, her hand hovering over the console. "I heard something." Lex looked up. "So?" Did one Juno's eyes went wide? It's broadcasting straight into our subconscious. Not with words, with instinct. They all felt it. a pull, a direction, as if something wanted them to come closer. Rhys gritted his teeth, set course. Hours later, the darkness began to glow. Faint blue pulses flickered ahead, like dying stars. But they weren't stars. They were constructs, orbiting what looked like a broken world, engine half-formed, half-live, covered in black lattice and humming, with unnatural power. The origin of Project Cauterize, and floating at its heart, wrapped in chains of energy, was something worse than a weapon. A mind. Juno gasped. It's not an AI. It's not mechanical at all. Rhys stepped closer to the main screen. Then what is it? Her voice lowered. A brain. A living one. Modified. Amplified. Trapped inside that machine. Sari's blood ran cold. They're using a living intelligence to guide the weapon. Lex looked at her. So if we kill the brain, we kill the system, Rhys finished. But as they drew closer, the mind spoke. Not aloud, not in language, but in feeling. You are small. You are fire. And fire can be smothered. The ship trembled. Alarms blared. The black constructs turned, and the enemy came alive. Dozens dashed, no hundreds of dark drones emerged from the rings. These weren't the ones from Cyrillus. These were advanced, shaped like spears, faster than anything Earth had ever seen. They didn't swarm, they hunted. Lex was already in the gunner's seat. Weapons hot. Sari activated the ship's hard light shields, incoming in 15 seconds. Juno tapped into the brain's frequency. If I can jam the link between the mind and the drones, we'll get a window to hit the core. Rhys stared at the swirling enemy. Then we make that window. The next 10 minutes were chaos. The ashfall dove, rolled, spun through waves of spear drones firing rapid burst. Antimatter rounds into the swarm. Lex whooped like a madman. You want a war? Let's dance, you ugly sticks. Sari kept the shields up just long enough to stop each burst of piercing fire. Rhys leapt between console panels, overriding lockouts, feeding power from backup. Systems directly into the weapons, and Juno. Juno bled from her nose as she linked deeper into the alien mind. It wasn't a machine. It was once someone alive who had been twisted and broken and caged inside the engine. Almost there, she gasped. The mind screamed inside her. You cannot stop what burns the galaxy clean. Rhys gritted his teeth. We're not here to stop a purge. He locked weapons onto the core. We're here to start one. Juno screamed as she severed the control link. The drones froze. Rhys fired, and the center of the world engine exploded. Silence for a few seconds. The void went still. Then the entire structure began to collapse. Fire curled outward like wings made of plasma, tearing the sky. Juno collapsed. Lex grabbed her before she hit the floor. We need to get out, Sari shouted. Rhys gave one last look at the burning core. Let it burn. The ashfall turned and vanished into the dark just as the enemy weapon imploded, taking its twisted brain with it. Later, drifting in the silence again, Earth's fleet sent out a single message: Cauterize terminated. Deathworlders prevailed. Back. On Cyrillus. The signal was received, and the Zoran looked up into the stars with new eyes, not afraid. Not anymore, because the humans didn't run from the dark. They went into it, and they returned. Still burning. The story spread like fire across the stars. It wasn't broadcast through official channels. It didn't appear in treaty documents or diplomatic briefings. It traveled through whispers, spoken in war camps, in refugee fleets, in orbiting stations, where captains drank hard liquor and old soldiers remembered what real fear felt like. It was the story of a world saved, a weapon destroyed, and a signal that dared to call Earth. And what answered that signal was not what anyone expected. On Cyrillus, the Zorons stood beneath the black sky, watching the new constellation that now glowed high above their world, a string of defense satellites, gifted by Earth, now linked in orbit like a shield of stars. Children pointed at them, naming each one after the human warriors who had fought on their soil. Rhys, Juno, Lex. They were no longer just strangers from a death world. They were legends. Reese stood near the ridge again, his old spot looking down over the rebuilt capital. It shimmered now solar grids, reinforced towers, and signal spires reaching into the sky. It wasn't a city anymore. It was a warning. Sorry joined him, arms crossed. We got the last report, she said. Purifier's destruction rippled. Through the enemy's whole network, their AI collapsed. Drones deactivated. Colonies freed. Reese nodded but didn't smile. Won't last. You think they'll rebuild? He looked up at the stars. No. Someone else will. Inside the command bunker, Juno stood before a holomap filled with hundreds of systems. Most were dark. Some blinked green, now freshly liberated by Deathworlder raids, but the work wasn't done. Project Cauterize was just one piece, she told the others. We cut off the head. It doesn't mean the body's dead. Lex leaned against the wall, tired but smirking. Then we burned the whole damn thing. What Earth had done was impossible-cidal, by some standards. They'd gone beyond known space, faced down a planetary killing intelligence, and lived. But humans weren't known for survival. They were known for not staying dead. 1 month. Later, the Zoran Council called a gathering in the High Amphitheater. Not for worship, not for politics, for remembrance. Elder Urin stood at the front, his old voice carried by the wind. There was a time we thought the galaxy would save us. That peace would arrive from heaven. That mercy would descend like light. He paused. But it wasn't mercy that came. It was fire. He gestured upward, toward the Earth ships orbiting quietly above. Let the galaxy remember this. When we cried for saviors, the Deathworlders came. They did not come to negotiate. They came with scars, with fury, with resolve. Looked to the people, and they gave us a gift no peace treaty ever could. The crowd leaned in, the right to fight back. Reese didn't attend the ceremony. He was already preparing for departure. Another signal had been picked up faint, garbled. On a broken loop from the edges of a collapsed nebula, it was another call for help. Another flame in the dark. Juno joined him at the ramp of the ashfall, wiping grease from her gloves. Back into the fire. Reese looked back at Surlis one last time. We never left it. Lex shouted from inside the ship. Shotgun's mine this time. Rolled her eyes. You said that last time. And with engines flaring and hearts steady, the Deathworlders rose again. Some say they were just soldiers. Some say they were monsters. But the ones who saw them, truly saw them, knew the truth. They were the line between survival and extinction. They were what came after hope failed. They were the reason whole civilizations still breathed. And though the galaxy might forget the names, it would never forget what it meant when Earth answered the call. Not with words, but with fire.